Travels Through History is brought to you by Maple Leaf Foods. 1997. Born into an aristocratic New York family, she used her clout with charm and grace to become one of the most powerful women in American media. Katherine Graham began working at her father's newspaper, The Washington Post, in 1937. When she married Philip Graham, a prominent lawyer, in 1940, Mr. Mayer sold the company to the couple for $1. After Philip committed suicide in 1963, Katherine assumed control of the company, serving as the publisher until 1979. Her team was responsible for some of the most gutsiest scoops of all time, including the publication of the secret Pentagon Papers and the Watergate scandal. In 1997, Katherine was awarded a Pulitzer Prize for her memoirs, Personal History, as we look back and travel through history. Travels Through History is brought to you by Maple Leaf Foods. 960 AD. Legend has it that during the Sung Dynasty of China from 960 to 1279, a cook created a mixture of potassium nitrate, sulfur, and charcoal, enclosed it in a bamboo chute, and lit it on fire. The result was a colorful explosion. It was the first display of fireworks. In 1248, fireworks traveled to England, where they were greatly valued by royalty. Queen Elizabeth I instated fireworkers, who discovered that various metallic salts would create different colors. Copper glows blue, sodium burns yellow, and strontium flashes red. By the American Revolution, fireworks had become a cherished, explosive tradition for celebrating important holidays. As we look back and travel through history. Travels Through History is brought to you by Maple Leaf Foods. 1711. The world's most famous and colorful racing event, the Royal Ascot, began when Queen Anne ordered a racecourse built near Windsor Castle in 1711. Members of the royal family continue to lead the procession to the raceway on opening day of the 4-day spectacular. The first race is dedicated to Queen Anne, but the most celebrated day, the Gold Cup, is reserved for ladies. Gold Cup Day at the races comes with a strict set of rules. Men must wear top hats and traditional black or gray suits. Women must dress in formal wear and cover the crowns of their heads. Over the years, women have become more creative, sporting lavish ornate hats made of fur, feathers, and tulle. As we look back and travel through history. Travels Through History is brought to you by Maple Leaf Foods. 1475. Coffee, the most popular drink on earth, was discovered by accident. In Ethiopia before 1000 AD, a goat herder named Kaldi noticed his animals acting friskier than usual from eating berries off a bush. He tried them himself and experienced the same boost of energy. Monks in Arabia dried the berries, crushed them in water, and drank the concoction to give them strength to pray longer. Coffee beans traveled to 14th century Turkey, where they were roasted, and in 1475, the world's first coffee shop, Kivahan, opened, beginning a trend that would last for centuries. Coffee and coffee houses spread through Europe, becoming a place for intellectual conversation. Coffee is the second most traded commodity in the world, with over 400 billion cups consumed a year. As we look back and travel through history. Travels Through History is brought to you by Maple Leaf Foods. 1847. Hot, milk, dark, white. In any form, chocolate has been loved around the world for centuries. During his conquest of Mexico beginning in 1518, Hernando Cortez discovered the Royal Aztec drink made of cocoa beans. Cortez returned to Spain with the cocoa drink, where it was cherished by the royal family. After adding cinnamon, sugar, and vanilla, hot chocolate became an aristocratic delight, kept from the rest of Europe for nearly 100 years. Eventually, the sweet secret was released by Spanish monks and chocolate drinks became a hit. The English introduced solid eating chocolate in 1847, and the Swiss added milk to the mixture in 1876. Since then, chocolate has transformed dramatically, yet remained a beloved yummy treat for all. As we look back and travel through history. Travels Through History is brought to you by Maple Leaf Foods. 520 BC. A symbol of magic and the moon, the pearl is the oldest known gem and perhaps the most desired for centuries. Long before written history, it is believed that humans discovered pearls while combing the seashore for food. Its soft, iridescent glow was so prized by ancient Egyptians that it was an honor to be buried with them. Pearls were so cherished in the royal courts that many European countries banned pearls from all except nobility. The creation of a pearl is a miraculous occasion. A pearl's life begins as a foreign object, which gets lodged into an oyster accidentally. As a defense mechanism, the oyster will coat the irritant with a silky crystalline coating, slowly building up over time, producing the lustrous gem unlike any other on Earth. As we look back and travel through history. Travels Through History is brought to you by Maple Leaf Foods. 1908. Her name is synonymous with the legendary house of fashion. She is Coco Chanel. Gabrielle Bonheur Chanel was raised by her aunts in Saumur, France, who taught her to sew and called her Coco. Chanel first started designing hats in 1908 and quickly expanded to jewelry. With the shortage of fabric during the First World War, Coco designed sophisticated yet practical clothing. Her style was the epitome of Art Deco and the flapper fashions of the 1920s. She introduced the turtleneck, the sailor dress, and even pants for women. She continued to break new ground with the little black dress and her signature suits with boxy jackets and brass buttons, still popular today. Coco also launched Chanel No. 5 in 1921, which is still a top-selling scent. As we look back and travel through history. Travels Through History is brought to you by Maple Leaf Foods. 1162. Bloody bullfights, fantastical theater, never-ending costume parties, scandalous games, and continuous masked parades. It's a time in Venice when personal identity and social class are unimportant. The Venice Carnival began as a celebration of victory of the Repubblica della Serenissima in the war against Ulrico in the year 1162. Magicians and jugglers joined dancing and singing Venetians in St. Mark's Square for joyous parties to rejoice. The traditional costume of Carnival is a black cape, a three-pointed hat, and a white mask covering the face, allowing the person to walk the streets incognito. Over the centuries, the craziness of the Carnival has intrigued thousands of visitors to partake in the outrageous festivities. As we look back and travel through history. Travels Through History is brought to you by Maple Leaf Foods. 1935. Opera ball season in Vienna. A time for strapping young gentlemen in black tuxedos to lead perfectly poised debutantes in elegant waltzes about the dance floor. In 1869, the Emperor Franz Joseph I established a new opera house in Vienna, though it took a few years to execute the first ball in the old customs. In 1877, the Strauss brothers conducted the orchestra, playing their famous opera ball polka. The glamorous event sadly ended in 1899, and it wasn't until 1921 that meager versions persisted. From 1935 till 39, the grandest of the Vienna opera balls were celebrated, a true representation of Venice high society. The opera house was destroyed in World War II, and the ball had ceased again until 1956 when it was revised to its former glory. As we look back and travel through history. Travels Through History is brought to you by Maple Leaf Foods. 1955. December 1st started as any normal day for Rosa Parks. After work at the Montgomery Fair department store, Rosa took the bus home. It was here that her decision to make a stand would change her life and the segregation laws in the South. When a white man was left without a seat, Rosa was required by law to give hers up, except she remained seated, was arrested, and fined. As an active member of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s civil rights movement and the NAACP, Rosa's arrest and trial sparked the famous bus boycott of Montgomery. When the case was taken to the Supreme Court, segregation on buses was declared illegal just 1 year later. The mother of the civil rights movement, Rosa Parks, remained instrumental in the development and advancement of African Americans. As we look back and travel through history. Travels Through History is brought to you by Maple Leaf Foods. 1739. Exotic, stunning beauty, intoxicating perfumes. The elegance of an orchid was treasured long before they were first recorded in the medical journals of Theophrastus. In medieval times, apothecaries believed the shapes of plants indicated their uses. Since the bulbs of most orchids resemble male genitalia, herbalists concocted love potions and fertility medicine out of dried orchids. In 1739, European explorers discovered the ancient Aztecs of Mexico using the essence from a vanilla orchid. By the 19th century, orchids were so popular that prices skyrocketed and growing competitions became a bourgeois pastime. Orchid admirers today are part of a larger orchid universe, trading over $9 billion worth every year. As we look back and travel through history. Travels Through History is brought to you by Maple Leaf Foods. 1893. Born in Brooklyn to a prize-fighting detective father and model dressmaker mother, Mary Jane West was destined to an extraordinary life. Mae began singing and dancing in local talent contests, which quickly led to joining a vaudeville act in her early teens. Here, she met Frank Wallace, her dance partner whom she secretly married when she was just 16. Still a teenager, Mae blossomed into a Broadway star, known for her provocative act and slinky feathered costumes. In 1926, Mae West wrote her first play entitled Sex. Her flirty wit inspired 9 more plays, and her hedonistic persona made her a starlet of 12 Hollywood films. As we look back and travel through history. Travels Through History is brought to you by Maple Leaf Foods. 5000 BC. They were recorded as medicine in the oldest Vedic writings of India and were used in the mummification rituals of ancient Egypt. Because their tissues are so thin, it is hard to trace the exact date of origin, but scientists theorize that the onion has grown wild on Earth for over 6,000 years. It is believed that the onion was first cultivated in Iran and was used for its healing properties as a diuretic, for digestion, for the heart, for the eyes and joints. Ancient Romans also used onions for toothaches, dog bites, and mouth sores. The Roman gourmet chef Apicius wrote the first cookbook including the heavy use of onions in his recipes. And to this day, people cannot resist the mouth-watering smell of fried onions on a hot stove. As we look back and travel through history. Travels Through History is brought to you by Maple Leaf Foods. 1900. They come in all shapes and sizes, and most people wear them every day. But underwear as we know it today did not exist until the 1920s. The first style of undergarment was the chemise, worn by men and women starting in the 16th century. Basically, just a long shirt to the calves, the chemise was worn day and night. Around 1800, upper-class European women began wearing long underpants with an opening between their legs. During this time, men also began to wear hose, the German word for pants, under their trousers. Gradually, underwear became tighter and crotches necessary to cover unmentionables. Underwear has become a giant industry, with designer labels like Calvin Klein and Victoria's Secret showcasing their styles on the runways. As we look back and travel through history. Travels Through History is brought to you by Maple Leaf Foods. 1995. In 1991, at age 14, Alek Wek and her younger sister left their conflict-ridden country, Sudan, and immigrated to England. Living in London, the girls quickly learned English and were joined by their mother and two siblings a year later. Alek excelled in school, attending the prestigious London College of Fashion, studying business and fashion technology. In 1995, a modeling agent discovered Alek in an outdoor market. News of this new African beauty spread quickly. An overnight success, she signed with Ford Modeling Agency and graced the runways of Paris, Milan, and New York. Amid all the glamour, Alek Wek has not forgotten her roots, continuing to raise awareness of the plight of refugees around the globe. As we look back and travel through history.